We've all heard the stories, right? That data centers, especially the ones powering all this new AI, are just sucking our planet dry. But is that really the whole picture? Today, we're going to dig past those headlines and find out what actually determines a data center's water footprint. And spoiler alert, it's not some single scary number. It's all about where it's built.
Yeah, you've definitely seen a headline like this one. It's dramatic, it's super memorable, and honestly, it paints a pretty scary picture. You just imagine these giant tech fortresses draining local lakes and rivers. It's the kind of thing that really sticks with you.
So, is it really that simple? Well, according to the Uptime Institute, the answer is a big fat no. That simple claim completely misses the most important part of the entire story. Let's break down exactly why.
Okay, so first things first. Data centers don't actually use water to, run the computers. The water is for cooling. The real issue here isn't about computation. It's about a basic law of physics. When you run thousands and thousands of servers in one place, especially for crazy intense stuff like training AI models, you generate a massive amount of heat. It really boils down to this simple three-step problem. 1. The servers get hot, really hot. 2. If they get too hot, they crash and burn. So you absolutely have to get that heat away from them. And 3, one of the most effective ways to do that is through evaporation, which, well, uses up water.
So if cooling is the name of the game, then the first huge variable we have to look at is the actual technology being used for that cooling. Because believe me, not all cooling systems are created equal. Not even close. And this chart just shows you how wild the difference is. I mean, look at this. On one end, you've got evaporative cooling, which is incredibly thirsty. But then way over on the other side, you have dry air-based cooling, which uses little to no water at all. So the choice of tech all by itself can completely change a data center's water footprint.
So, to get a handle on that really high consumption method, just think about how your own body cools off on a hot day. When you sweat, right? The evaporation of that sweat pulls heat away from your skin. Well, evaporative cooling towers in a data center work on that exact same principle, just on a much, much bigger scale. And here is another super important distinction we need to make. There's a difference between consumption and usage. Consumption is water that's actually gone, poof, evaporated and removed from the local system. Usage, on the other hand, can just mean water that's flowing through a closed set of pipes to move heat around. It's being used, but it's not being lost. When we're talking about local impact, consumption is the only number that really truly matters.
All right, let's move on to the second factor, which is arguably the most important one of all. The one that completely blows that one-size-fits-all myth out of the water, and that is the local climate. Where you decide to build the data center changes literally everything. So what does this actually look like in the real world? This slide makes the point perfectly. Let's say you have the exact same data center design. If you build it somewhere cool, like Iceland, you can just open the vents and use the chilly outside air for cooling most of the year. You barely need any water. But now take that exact same facility and plop it down in the middle of a hot, dry place like Arizona. Suddenly, it has to rely on super water-intensive cooling just to stay online. Same building, totally different story for water. And here's the real kicker. When do you think a data center in a hot place needs the most water for cooling? Yep, during the hottest, driest days of summer, which is the exact same time the local water supply is already being stretched to its limit by everyone else. So it's not just about how much water. It's about when that water is needed.
Okay, so we've got it. Technology and climate are huge. But what about those big, scary numbers we see in the headlines? How much water are we actually talking about here? It's time for a little reality check. You might see a number like this, millions and millions of gallons a day. It's the kind of figure that fuels those as much water as a city headlines. And you can totally see why it causes concern.
But here's the thing, those huge numbers, they're outliers. They represent the absolute biggest facilities in the absolute hottest climates. The surveys show that the vast, vast majority of data centers use way less water than that. The worst-case scenario is not the typical scenario.
So, the most important point is this. The impact isn't just about the number of gallons used. It's about that number compared to how much water is actually available right there. A data center using a decent amount of water in a rainy, water-rich area might have basically zero negative impact. But you take that same facility and put it in a place that's already in a drought, and suddenly it can create a serious conflict over a resource that's already scarce.
So, if the problem is local and complicated, the solutions have to be too. This isn't about just banning data centers, it's about building them smarter and being a lot more honest about how we talk about them.
On the design side of things, there are some really clear strategies. Engineers can actually design servers that can run safely when they're a little bit warmer, which cuts down on the need for constant, hardcore cooling. They can choose cooling systems that are way more water efficient, or even ones that are totally waterless. And maybe most importantly, they can match the cooling technology to the local climate right from day one.
And for the companies that run these places, the solution isn't to give us one big global average. It's to be transparent, location by location. Good reporting really just means answering these 4 key questions for every single facility. That way, communities can understand the real, specific impact right where they live.
This right here is the main takeaway. The next time you hear someone throw out a global average for how much water data centers use, you should be a little skeptical. The only number that truly matters is the one that's tied to a specific place, because water is and always will be a local resource.
And all of this leaves us with a final thought. We need to completely change the question we're asking. Instead of chasing a single, simple answer that doesn't even exist, we should be asking a much smarter, more specific question, one that actually respects the importance of technology, climate, and community, because that is how we move past the alarm and get to some real understanding.